two masked individuals attacked Max and I in broad daylight as we stood in a defenseless position. Our own classmates then immediately approached us and told us that we deserved what had just happened to us and that we both would be going to hell.
This is Bishop Robert Stearns. I'm here on Mount Zion in Jerusalem. The Mount of Olives is just behind me. And Solidarity Sunday 2025 was an incredible coming together of Jews and Christians standing in solidarity together, declaring never again. I want to invite you to join me as you hear the speeches, the testimony, the witness firsthand of Jewish leaders who are standing strong and proud in the midst of attack, in the midst of this rising anti-Semitism. They are raising their voices, and we are forming a wall of protection around them. Join me as you hear their amazing stories.
I'm going to introduce you to Michael Kaminsky. Michael was assaulted physically by pro-Hamas supporters on the campus of DePaul University in Chicago, our own backyard. Before Michael comes, we want to show you this news video about his story. And after we show this now, then Michael will come up. Watch this.
Two students speaking for the first time since they were attacked in broad daylight right here in the middle of campus. One was jumped from behind and beaten, according to police, as he and another Jewish student were standing outside the Lincoln Park Student Center. Max Long and Michael Kaminsky are beat up. Just out of the hospital, they're sore and aching.
Trying to cope with everything that happened. Pretty traumatic experience.
His arm still wrapped in bandage.
I never thought that me continuing to doing my activist work would put a target on my back.
Chicago police now investigating this as a hate crime, releasing these photos of the suspects they're looking for. Despite this traumatic experience, the two students say they refuse to cower to fear and intimidation and plan to continue advocating for open dialogue.
They may have tried to physically attack us. They may have, hurt us, but our spirits aren't broken.
DePaul's president calling the incident outrageous and completely unacceptable. Governor J.B. Pritzker also asking Illinois State Police to assist Chicago PD in apprehending the suspects.
My name is Michael Kaminsky. I'm a junior at DePaul University. I'm an ambassador for the Growing Wings program, the Israeli engagement chair of my fraternity, the vice president of the Students Supporting Israel chapter at my college, but most importantly, a proud American Jew. My story starts in 1941 during World War II with my family in Ukraine. At that time, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and most of my family was unable to escape. As a result, some of my family members that couldn't escape did not make it out alive. This included my great-aunt's father, who was one of the Jews that were rounded up by local Nazi loyalists and killed. Those who did managed to escape, went to the Ural Mountains, but were not completely out of religious persecution. They continued to face rabid anti-Semitism by being called names such as dirty Jew to remind them of where they placed in the social hierarchy. Others went to Kazakhstan. When arriving there, my grandfather's brother unfortunately lost his life before ever turning a year old due to being able to not find enough food for his family to feed him. To this day, I wonder what kind of a person he could have been if he survived. All the shared experiences and memories I could have had with him if I was ever given the opportunity to meet him. Additionally, my grandmother was denied entry to nursing school due to this exam proctor finding out she was Jewish and failing her. All of the shared experiences resulted in my remaining family emigrating with my father in 1975 to come to America and search for a better life for their family. On my mother's side, life was not much different. My grandfather was not able to get into higher education due to the institute he applied to finding out he was Jewish. As a result, it took him 3 years before he could finally enroll in night classes to continue his studies. While attending school at a young age in Ukraine, my mother was attacked by a boy in her class after being called a dirty Jew. Their family was able to flee religious persecution in the mid-1990s with a small suitcase and their life savings, arriving in the United States with nothing more but a hope and a dream of a better future for their family. My mother was 18 years old when she arrived to America. As you may be able to tell, life for most Jewish people was never easy. Countless stories have been passed on from generation to generation, with each facing its own forms of antisemitism and persecution, and my story follows along. See, I was born in a suburb of Illinois, and growing up as a Jew raised by parents who both came from the former Soviet Union, I learned firsthand what it meant to be a Jew. My family would only ever light the menorah as their way to remind us that we were still Jewish, along with the mezuzah that hung on our doorframe to the entrance of our house. I believe the generational trauma caused us to lack our embrace of our Jewishness, and at one point, I feared it would be completely forgotten. So when I turned 13 and asked my father what his bar mitzvah was like, he replied, "I never had one." And that day, I knew I had enough of hiding my Jewish identity, and I no longer would allow us to forget our roots, and never again would finally mean more to me than just words. I would end up sharing this special moment with my father, the person I look up to as my own role model. See, for me, this moment would be far more important than ever imagined, as it was the first time my grandfather would see his son embrace his Jewish religion with his child, as well as the last time, as he would suddenly pass away only a few weeks later. This was merely the start of my Jewish journey. I attended Stevenson High School in Lincolnshire, Illinois, where I was blessed with the opportunity to take Hebrew as my foreign language requirement class for 4 years. I finally learned how to read Hebrew, which opened up a new door for me to begin reading parts of the Torah and other writings in a new language rather than just English. But although I wish people would have told me that just because you can read doesn't necessitate knowing what you are reading, because sometimes it still feels like I'm reading hieroglyphs, I'm not going to lie. Upon graduation, I enrolled in studies at DePaul University, which I continue to attend today. I chose a major in criminology because I plan to achieve a future in either law or federal law enforcement and continue to protect the American people from both enemies, foreign and domestic. As a freshman, I got involved with all the Jewish organizations on campus, such as Chabad and a Jewish fraternity. As a sophomore, I would have never realized how vital these connections would be until the day the world froze. On October 6th, I celebrated my 20th birthday with my friends in my apartment, when all of a sudden I had a very bad gut feeling. See, it was one of those feelings that you can't explain, but you just know that something terrible had just happened. I went to sleep that night with immense emotion, and my friends asked me why I looked like I was about to cry, and I simply couldn't give them an answer. When I woke up, I understood. My entire world had just flipped upside down. One news article after another was jumping out at me on my phone of the atrocities that were continuing to occur in our ancestral homeland of Israel that day. I told my parents to immediately call our family in Israel and ask if they were safe, all the while I began texting all my friends who were currently serving in the IDF to make sure they were okay as well. Just like the rest of the world, I was glued to my phone that day. On October 8th, I called my rabbi and asked what I should do, and this is how he responded. "Michael, the world will look to people like you to lead them through one of the worst moments in modern history since the Holocaust, and you need to answer the call." I hung up and knew my life's work was about to begin. I attended the first ever pro-Israel march in downtown Chicago and began making connections. On my campus on April 30th of 2024, encampments were set up by terrorist sympathizers who flew flags of foreign terrorist organizations, along with lining up on the quad and limiting any Jews from walking in. In response, I gathered a group of around 20 students and community members and blasted Israeli music while singing national anthems of both Israel and the United States. Less than a week later, I used all the connections I ever had and was able to pull off the largest pro-Israel rally in the history of DePaul University. Mind you, my university is the largest private Catholic university in the country, with members of all different races and religions, uplifting the Israeli and American spirit. To give you perspective, I was told over 1,000 people were in attendance, with Israeli and American flags flying high, which included an airplane pulling an Israeli flag way up in the sky, circling our university. The amount of love flowing on our campus was immense. As protesters attempted to stand off with our rally, it was clear where the world stood. However, this did not dissuade my peers from attempting to silence Jewish voices. Knives and a pellet gun were brought into the encampment, and the lives of many Jews, including my own on campus, were threatened daily. My friend on campus flew back after visiting her family in Israel around that time, and she said she felt more safe in Israel with literal bombs flying overhead than she did on her own college campus as a Jew. I met students who have told me they have to hide any identifying features that link them to being Jewish. I've talked to students who have told me they've been sleeping in their grandparents' house every night just to get away from the chanting that goes on in the middle of campus well into nighttime. I met students who felt too scared walking into the library to study because that meant they would have to walk through flyers and posters that read Jewish safety cannot be achieved until Palestine is freed. Despite this, many rose up to the fight. At the University of North Carolina, fraternity brothers held up our old glory from being destroyed. Students at Columbia and UCLA, as well as my university, would blast music and wear our Megan Davids firmly on our heads to ensure everyone knew we weren't afraid. As the year concluded, I knew more must be done once I returned back to college for a new school year this past September. My club, Students Supporting Israel, worked tirelessly to create a display honoring the hostages for the one-year mark since the atrocities occurred on October 7th, which we even had the opportunity to broadcast on ABC News. The same day, others on our campus thought it would be best to hold a march honoring the terrorists who killed the innocent civilians and kidnapped hundreds of others from their home, rather than to acknowledge the brutality that had occurred that day a year ago. Jewish students were threatened again and told their voices would not ring loud on campus. So as a result, I partnered with my friend Max Long, which you saw in the video, and that's him on the picture as well, an IDF reservist, to table outside our student center building and show people raw footage that he had taken personally on his GoPro from inside terror tunnels in Gaza and what he saw in order to be able to disprove all made-up claims and misconceptions people may have had. We would stand there together despite any weather condition that we faced, attempting to educate and engage in much-needed conversations and dialogue with our community. Never did we expect what was about to happen to us. On November 6th, exactly 1 month to the date, following my 21st birthday, as Max and I took our spots again in front of the Student Center, where we have stood each week advocating for Israel on campus, two masked individuals attacked Max and I in broad daylight as we stood in a defenseless position, leaving us injured before running away cowardly. Our own classmates then immediately approached us and told us that we deserved what had just happened to us and that we both would be going to hell. To this day, they have yet to be caught, and not a single person or organization has been held accountable for their actions. This is the day that I found out what it truly means to be a Jew in modern day context. While recovering from our injuries, we were swarmed with love from communities around the world. We also understood there have been only a few students that have ever spoken out publicly after being physically attacked to the media outlets to share their story and call to action. Thus, we began appearing on several media channels internationally, and when anyone searches up the words DePaul Jewish students on the internet, every single news article is about Max and I. In December, I was able to attend a conference in Southern Florida where I was granted the ability to speak in front of Ben Shapiro, meet with the great Alan Dershowitz, and speak to the mothers of several hostages still held in a captivity. I also had the chance to meet a former hostage who was freed, and he talked about what Israel meant to him as he was being held in captivity, unknowing if he would ever wake up in the morning or if he would ever see his homeland again. See, our work is clearly not done, and it is crucial to continue to be a strong and powerful advocate for Israel around the world, without concern for one's background. What is happening around the world is the uprising of terror. Watching our homeland flags burn, our campuses destroyed, and our families broken because terrorism wants to take root in our communities. What we are seeing is not just a call against the Jewish people and Zionist people, but a call for hate against all Western-valued, democracy-dreaming people. Therefore, we must hold people accountable for their actions and pray for a better future for mankind. Tomorrow is International Holocaust Memorial Day, and the words "never again" have never rung truer and more vital than ever before. When faced with adversity and the choice to act or pretend like the issue doesn't affect us, may we all choose to be like Oskar Schindler, Simon Wiesenthal, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I urge all of you to do your part to ensure the promise of never again is achieved in our lifetimes. So as a proud citizen of the United States and as a proud Jew, I say Am Israel High, and God bless the United States of America.
These stories, these testimonies are overwhelming. It's amazing to hear the strength, the perseverance, the resilience of the Jewish people. I want to invite you to join me and come alongside our covenantal older brother in faith, the Jewish community. You can do that by going to eagleswings.org and becoming a partner today. You can plant a tree in Israel in our forest of life, an amazing, amazing forest that literally the desert is blossoming as the rose. You can feed hungry Israeli families through our Abraham's Bread feeding program. There's so many different ways for you to be involved, but let me hear from you today. Make your best gift today and ask your church to be involved in next year's Solidarity Sunday. All of the information is there in the link. We are believing that hundreds and hundreds of churches are going to join together every year and understand that never again is now, and we have to be a part of that solution. I look forward for your prayers, your giving, your partnership, making a difference in this generation. Solidarity Sunday, be a part of it.